and welcome to another episode of the Pentacast Podcast. My name is Andrew Bella, your host. Alongside me is not Ryan. It is the one and only Goofy Josh Kimbrell, who never wears matching socks.
I'm better than Ryan.
I doubt that. We're so glad to have each and every one of you tuning in. However you may be listening, you may be viewing on YouTube, however you may be viewing our podcast, we want to say thank you. And we hope everyone has had a wonderful summer. It is hot here in the South, and I am absolutely sick and tired of it. And I'm ready for winter once again. Hope you had a wonderful 4th of July. Hope you've been doing some awesome stuff and living for Jesus. And we're just excited to have you on the podcast. Excited for this episode. We've been looking forward to it for some days now, Josh. This was actually done behind the scenes. You really didn't even know that this was going to occur because we met our guests at a facility in which I think it's a conviction. I don't think that you really feel good about going. Would you say it's a conviction? Like you feel bad when you go to this type of facility?
No. I mean, I don't really feel one way or the other when I don't go or go.
Well, if the Lord told you, I don't want you to go to a gym again to enter into heaven,
it wouldn't be hard.
I think you would make heaven your home. I would have no doubt.
Yeah.
But anyways, we have none other than Brother Ethan Nettles and Brother Matt. You're going to have to help me with your last name.
All-Britain, like all of Britain, All-Britain.
Okay.
Brother Matt All-Britain.
That's it.
Yes, awesome. Welcome to the podcast, guys.
Thank you.
We were at the gym, me and Ty. He can poke his head in on one of these cameras. He's here. Did you just wave? No, I didn't. Okay, well, he's here somewhere behind the scenes, ladies and gentlemen. And I made a promise back in January that I was going to try to lose weight. I've tried to do Photoshop, everything to make you think that I have done it without having to do it, but I am trying. And it's the middle of the year, past the middle of the year, and me and Ty made a commitment to go to the gym as much as possible. And so we run into you guys at the gym there in Douglas, and, we kind of connected in a distance. We would make comments to one another and say, those guys they're good. They're always singing about Jesus. And one day in particular, you, Ethan, you were encouraging somebody in your youth group, and I just kind of asked you, I said, what church do you guys go to? And you told me that you're a youth pastor or youth leader at your church, and I think we just kind of connected with you guys spiritually before we even created what you would consider a friendship, because I've seen how you guys interact with one another. It's one thing when you go to church with somebody and they're really, really church-like at church. But then when you leave church, it's like, this is a totally different human being. There's no relationship with Jesus because they never bring him up. You know what I mean? And so while we were there at the gym these past several months, we've just noticed that there's a difference. And we started kind of talking with both of you, which today's episode, we're going to get into Ethan's testimony, which we're excited. I know nothing about it, just little bits and pieces that you've told me. But one thing that really stuck out to me about Matt, your testimony, is what you said about not even believing in the existence of God, right, and how he absolutely wrecked your world in a good way. And I just said to myself, I was like, we have got to get these stories. And so I want to say thank you so much for coming on and giving God glory, no matter how you can do it. And the best thing we can do is share the gospel of Jesus. So thank you guys for coming, for sure.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Ethan, where would you say your story begins?
If I had to start with a beginning, I guess it would have to start with a beginning. Not raised up particularly in a Christian home. My mom was a hairdresser at Magic Scissors in town. I don't know if y'all remember it. I don't know if you're old enough to remember it, but she was a hairdresser at Magic Scissors. And oddly enough, my pastor, his mom, Brother Cliff Kirkland, sister Janie Ruth, she actually owned the hairdressing place. My mom would always take me to church, though. New Hope Baptist Church is where we went. And she would drop me off. And it was Vacation Bible School. I was 7 years old, 1997. And she dropped me off, and I was upset that night. And I told her, I was like, you're not coming back to get me. Well, she said, I'll be back. My uncle picked me up, and I said, I told you she wouldn't come back. Well, that night, a drunk driver ran off the road and ran through Magic Scissors, ended up killing two people, James Davis and Brenda Kirkland, which is Brother Cliff's, was his cousin, and messed my mom up really bad.
Man.
Not expected to make it through the night. Extensive facial reconstruction, back totally tore up, knee totally replaced. Like I said, it was all night. I remember my aunt, Cindy Ricketson, she was up all night answering the phone. That was at the time it was corded phone. You didn't have a cordless phone back then. Mm-hmm. And she was answering the phone up all night, and none of us slept. And she made it through, and Brenda was my mama's best friend. She swapped chairs with my mama that day because my mama had something that she didn't have, doing hair. But Brenda was saved. She knew the Lord. Very devout Christian.
Wow.
And she always encouraged my mama about the Lord. Every time they went to one of the hair conventions, they were best friends. Every year on my mama's birthday, she'd call, sing her happy birthday, and she was gone. So in that brokenness, over a matter of a couple months, my mama found the Lord. And she continued to take me. My daddy was, a 30, 35-year alcoholic, drank a case a day, 2 cases on the weekend. That was his thing. He works construction. That was his thing. And I was 11 or 12 at Vacation Bible School, and they had us all gathered up in the main church, and they played a hymn, and I went down and gave my life to Christ. And about a year after that, my daddy's best friend worked with him on a Friday and went to the hospital, had throat cancer for about 5 years, didn't tell anybody.
Wow.
And not even my daddy. Nobody knew. And he died in the middle of the night. Right before he passed away, about an hour or two before he passed away, my Aunt Bessie was a very devout Christian. He gave his life to Christ. And in that brokenness, my daddy found the Lord.
Wow.
Stopped drinking. The next weekend after my uncle passed, I come out, we were going fishing, and you always poured the water out of the cooler, iced down the beer.
Yep.
And I said, Daddy, what you want me to do? You want me to pour the water out? And he said, no, son, just throw them away. He didn't touch anything else for 17 years. Didn't touch a drop of alcohol. And he changed. He became the man of the house. He became the spiritual leader of the house. He followed Christ. And I was in a very strong youth group under Brother Stephen Anderson at Cornerstone Church of God of Prophecy. It was strong. We were brothers and sisters. And he was, in all sense of the word, he was one of the men that helped mold me into being the youth pastor that I am.
As a young man, you need that foundation, right?
You do. And he showed us how being a youth and being a Christian, being in church, following the Lord is fun. Yeah. Because what the devil does is with the youth is he tries to trick us into thinking that God's holding out on us. When it comes to like sex before marriage, when it comes to drugs, the Lord's holding out on us because he says that's not something you can have. The same thing that happened with Eve in the Garden of Eden. Yeah. You can eat from any tree in this. The reason why that God didn't want you to eat from that tree is because you'll be smarter than him.
And he's holding out on you.
He's holding out on you. And that's once the devil instills that doubt in our youth, and 90% of us, and I don't know if that's an accurate statistic, but a good amount of our generation don't even take our kids to church. You see it all the time. Some of our kids that are at our youth group, they're the only one in their family coming to church. They're the light for their family. What's that statistic that says if a child comes to Christ, it's like a 20% chance?
Yeah, and then the mother, it's higher.
Like
but if
30
it's
or 40. If it's the dad, though,
it's almost 100%.
It's almost 100%.
These two guys here, Josh and Ty, are the only ones that attend church out of their entire family.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not throwing off on anything, but it speaks volumes because obviously their situations are different, and all the situations in your youth group are obviously different. But faithfulness, if a kid's doing it on his own,
That's right.
chances are no success.
That's right.
No success.
Well, that's why we try to instill in them so much. It's something that we pound is be that light, be the lamp, be encouraging. Usually when we end up like submitting to God, when we end up falling to God and actually giving our life to God, if you are lost, is in brokenness. Mm-hmm. And why not be that light and say, you know, when you're the child in the house and your dad's down or your mom's down or they're having financial problems or marriage problems, be the light.
Yeah.
Share the word. But you got to know the word to share the word. So that means you got to pick up that Bible. And most of these kids, all they want to do is pick up that phone.
Yeah.
So be the light. And that's something that we really, me and Matt and our wives, we really pound is like, be the light. Mm-hmm. Read the word. You know, if you're in the word, it's in you.
Yeah, be the difference.
Be the difference.
Be the difference.
There's a chance. I don't care if it is a 10% chance. It's a chance.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a chance. And through that, we've seen a couple of the kids that have actually led some of their family members to Christ, including one of them's dad.
That's a faith builder for that young man or young woman who accomplishes that, because now they see their faith actually paying off.
That's right.
Working. Yeah. There's a flip side to that. You see a young person struggling. What I tell Ty and what I've told him a lot is through his story, he's already come up through what we would consider the school of hard knocks. Mm-hmm. So some of the things that he has had to face as a young man, and Josh is, as a little boy is facing.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
There's some people that are so sheltered that have yet to experience real world trauma, because it's going to affect you some way or another.
That's right.
Somewhere down in your life, you're going to experience something that's going to shake you to your core.
That's right.
And I said, you've already been through a lot of that.
That's right.
So you should have a firm foundation in Christ, whereas somebody who's been sheltered their whole lives and have never experienced anything, a little small windstorm can shake them.
That's right.
You know, and I'm not discrediting a good upbringing, but there's too many times we look at tragedy as a negative.
That's right.
When, like you said, when we come to God, it's always in brokenness. You're always broken.
Got to be. Well, God can't use you until you're broke.
That's right.
You know, it talks about the potter and the clay, and until you're actually able to be molded, He can't use you. You know, you're just running out. You got holes. You got you're porous. You got holes running out of you, and that's, you know, I talked to you about the doubt that the devil instills in a teenage life, and that was something that happened with me. Had a strong foundation. My mama was serving the Lord. My daddy was serving the Lord. My sister was serving the Lord, sang on the praise team. I sang on the praise team. But I wanted to taste the world. You know, I wanted to go drink a little bit. I wanted to go have sex before marriage. I wanted to do these things that I thought
God was holding out on me.
Holding out on me. That's it. And it's so hard to tell these kids now, like, hey, I've already walked this. I promise you, it's a trap. He's setting up a trap for you. That's it. Because it's going to affect having sex before marriage, whether it's with your wife or with somebody else. It's going to affect your marriage.
Yeah, forever.
It's going to affect it. It really is. Mm-hmm. You know, drinking, taking drugs. You know, I've done some of all of it. Mm-hmm. You know, that stuff, it's going to affect you later in life. You know, you don't have, and I battle with this so bad, and I've talked to Matt about this before, but I battle so bad with, if I hadn't walked through what they're going through, we've got some that we've seen with a spirit of homosexuality. Mm-hmm. All right, it's big now today. Everybody's got to fit in, and if you're not accepting of that, then you're not, you know, there's something wrong with you.
Mm-hmm. There's something wrong with me.
Yeah, there's something wrong with me.
There's something wrong with me.
My Bible tells me to love, and I'm going to love you regardless, but I don't have to accept your sin.
No way.
I don't have to. That's a line that I draw. But I talked to Matt. I said, how do I minister? How do we minister to somebody like that?
We had this exact same conversation.
We've never been through that. I don't know.
Don't even know how to relate to you.
I have no clue.
Good luck. You know? I mean, read your Bible, right?
But the crazy thing is every single gap that you think you have, God can fill it. You know, I demonstrated with the kids, you know, I said, I can't reach you across the room over there from where I'm at. But if I grab a hold of Matt and he grabs a hold of you and he grabs a hold of you, Josh, then he can touch Ty.
We can all get there.
We can all get there. Yeah. And that's the main goal.
That's right.
You know, I might touch somebody and God could use them to touch you.
That's right.
That's it. That's the only thing that matters. And it's not to my glory. It's not about, there's not a single word. You talked about, you know, about being inside of, you know, a church or this or that. If you don't see God in people outside of the church, then I'll be honest with you. I question it.
You know, if you ever saw him in the first place in that person,
there's no fruit.
Of course.
There's no fruit. Ministry is not inside those four walls.
Well, the only thing that's brought us right here together in this conversation that we're having right now that is going to be aired for the multitudes to digest, the only thing that brought us together was Kindred Spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was, man, they are always giving God praise. It wasn't, hey, you know, I could get glory out of, or I could get something out of a relationship or whatever. Or, I mean, the only thing that brought us together is, man, there's something about them that's different than everybody else that we're around right now in a gym. You know what I mean?
That's right. In the most unlikely of places.
Of course.
See, that's how God works, though.
Exactly.
That's how God works.
But you will know them by their fruits.
Yep.
You're going to know them by their fruits. And it's like we say all the time, if it quacks like a duck, if it walks like a duck, it's a duck. And there's too many times when you can see God all over some individual that you discount because they don't look or act like the way you think that they should or anything, whatever. But yet we'll put our stamp of approval on somebody that has no characteristics of Jesus.
Yep.
That was one of our episodes we did recently. And we'll say, they're good. Why? Because they say they're good.
They have a social status, or they got money, or they look.
They're not broken, though.
That's right.
They're not broken.
Right. Hey, there has to be a place of humbleness.
That's
there
right,
has to
man.
come in a brokenness, and that's Pastor Cliff. He preached this past weekend, Sunday, on leaving the tares, and that how you say it, leaving the tares.
Yeah.
In with the wheat. It talks about the wheat and the tares, and you know, it looks the same, but one produces fruit and the other one doesn't.
Yeah.
You know, but
one will be choked out.
That's right. One will be. It'll overtake it. But at the end of the day, the ministry, if you don't take it outside those four walls, we're not doing anything but having a social gathering.
You're right.
We're not.
So your dad was sober for 17 years.
17 years.
And in that time, really, you had a perfect opportunity to run for Christ right then and there.
I did.
But there was a drawing effect.
Well, I was called.
How old were you at this time?
16, 17. 16, 17. I was called.
Tough years, man.
When I was 13, God told me, he called me to be a pastor. That's your call. It's going to be your call. And from about 13 to 16, I ran to it. Actually went with a lady that actually has all she does is youth ministry. It's called Nancy Harmon Ministries. And we travel.
Is she the lady from Jimmy Swaggart still?
That's it.
She sang. She's a good singer, right?
She is a great singer. Writes a bunch of songs that you've heard in church. She wrote them.
I'm sure.
And the Mighty Warriors is the name of that group. And one summer, I traveled with them all summer, and we went around. It's basically a revival every week at a different church for about 8 weeks. And man, I was on fire for God. Come back to the church on fire for God, man, ready to go, ready to be put to work. And I let the devil instill that doubt. You're not good enough for this. And honestly, I've never been good enough for the call.
That's exactly right. Nobody.
He's telling me stuff. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. I'm not good enough for the call, but he doesn't call you unless he equips you.
Look at the people he used in the Bible.
That's right.
Murderers, liars, thieves.
That's right.
I mean, he used a harlot. I mean, he uses all kinds of misfits. That's what I love about God, is because he's not limited to our flaws. If he was, he couldn't accomplish anything.
He seems to use like the least to show
how powerful
he can do the most. Yeah. I mean, look at Gideon.
Yep.
I mean, his whole tribe was like the least. That's what it said. They were the poorest. They were the least. And he ended up making something of them. He ended up being the one to go tear down, Baal's statue. I mean, that was that guy.
Yep.
And God doesn't have to use the biggest and strongest and the ones that we would look at and say, that right there, that's what a man of God's supposed to look like.
That's right.
You know, sometimes the man of God is just the one kneeling down over there praying, interceding for other people.
That's right, man.
You know, but it's 16, 17 years old. I fell into the world. Still going to church. Me and one of the guys, we were best friends. And like I said, I don't want to call names, but me and him fell into a lot of the same stuff. And we actually had competitions about who can make it through service without throwing up.
Wow.
That was our thing. That's how bad we were. And hungover, bad shape, running from God, just running. And still going to church, but running from God, because my mama had one rule, and that was, you're going to church. Yeah. You can lay out all night with the dogs, but you're going to get up and you're going to church. Didn't matter where we were at. And it's something that
sounds like my mom. Yeah.
I mean, she was a woman of God, you know, to the fullest, and ran from God. Actually went to a Christian college up in Kentucky, played football up there for a couple years, and God all over it, just God everywhere. And I ran, drinking, drugging, doing whatever I could. And I got engaged to my wife now before I went off to college, and she's always had a firm foundation in Christ. And she's, you know, of course, with kids, you know, done some things and this, that, and the other, but a woman of God, a strong, strong woman of God. And for a 10-year period, she went to church, and I made my boys go. My first one was born. Part of my testimony is her testimony. Is when we were in college, we actually, my first year at South Georgia, she got pregnant. We lost a baby. We wasn't married. And the doctor told us basically this, you can adopt eventually.
Oh, really?
But this isn't going to happen. You know, good luck. Her thyroid wasn't working properly. It never was, even as a little girl. And just broke. And because we so badly wanted that. I ended up going to college off in Kentucky. And we ended up breaking up while I was up there. And I thought that's what I wanted. And it ended up like breaking me. And when we got back together, I never looked back. I was like, we're getting married. I'm done with this. I don't want anything else out there. I want you. And a month after we moved in our house in October, we were actually working on the house still. Her aunt, her mama, and her daddy, and my mom and daddy were over there at the house, and we had found out the night before she was pregnant, so we told them. And in February, we ended up having my first little baby boy, Paxton. After she had Paxton, he was a little over a year old. Her neck swole up. Her thyroid, it's called Hashimoto, I believe is what it's called. But her thyroid died, and it turned black and swelled up. And they said they didn't think it was cancerous.
I've never heard of that.
It just died. And they went in to do surgery and tested it, sent half of it, because some of it was still working. They were going to leave half her thyroid because that's what produces all your hormones and everything. And they sent it off, and it was cancer. Mm. So she had thyroid cancer, and we were 23 maybe. Yeah, about 23.
That's tough, man.
And she had to go back and have a second surgery in 2 weeks. We had a baby that didn't understand that mama couldn't hold him. Praise God, she didn't have to have radiation, so she didn't have to stay away from the baby. It was just rough. She still got a scar right here. And every time I see that scar, I just think about God's promises, because we wanted more kids. Mm-hmm. And the first doctor appointment we went to 3 months after she had the surgery, Dr. Lawrence over in Valdosta, she's a really, really nice lady, super nice lady. And she looked at my wife and she said, y'all probably won't be able to have any more kids. We'll have to, if you do want to try, it's a real small chance, but we're going to have to up your thyroid medicine, crazy amounts. And, you know, that's how it's going to go. It'll be something we'll have to monitor, and we'll have to actually doctor you into a pregnancy. And my wife said, and I'll never forget this, because she's faithful, and she has so much faith in God. And I was not living for Christ at the time. And she looked at the doctor and she said, but if it's a God thing. And Dr. Lawrence looked at her and she said, and Brittany said, but if it's a God thing. And she looked at her and she said, well, if it's a God thing.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you a little bit of hope, whatever.
Yeah,
you know?
That's what she said. And I don't know if Dr. Lawrence believed in God, but my wife made sure that she said that she acknowledged her that if it's a God thing, it's a God thing. Mm-hmm. Well, 3 months later, we go back for an appointment. Before we go back, a week before we go back, she's pregnant. And she called her and she started freaking out. She said, well, we got to up your medicine. You know, the first trimester is so important with the baby's brain, and I hope there's nothing wrong. You know, I wish we'd have planned this. And Brittany said, well, it's a God thing, so it's going to be okay. All right. 9 months later, a perfect little baby boy, another boy. And, you know, when the devil says no, if God gives you a promise, it's a promise.
His promises are yea and amen.
And amen. That's right. It's going to happen. So I see all this. I see my wife being faithful. She goes to church. She worships God. She reads the word. She prays.
And you're feeling like just this big, right?
I mean, I realize I know what I am. I know at the time I'm for lack of better words, I'm trash. Because I see all this and I see God working. I know God. I've been like I'm supposed to be. I've been on fire for God. I've ran to God, but I'm running. Because I know if I ever step there, there's no just being saved for me. There's no just me limping into heaven. I'm either all in or all out. And God's not going to let me just sit. He's not. He never has. He's always pushed me into something. It's not just about going to church. It's not just about warming up a pew for me. It's always been, there's something for you to do. There's a calling. And I see all this. And to put it honestly, through the first 9 years of my marriage, you know, I'm addicted to pornography. Because nothing to do with my wife, everything to do with I hated myself. I hated everything about myself. I would get up in the morning and look at myself in disgust. You know, I hate you. I don't like you. Mm-hmm. And I battle with this addiction. And I'm drinking a little bit. Never got out of hand. Never put my hands on my wife. Never put my hands on my kids. Have never been an angry alcoholic. You know, I just drank a few because I thought that's what a man was supposed to look like. Because that's what my daddy did forever.
Right.
You know, and the last time I drank, I remember going to the river with him, you know, a couple years ago and passing out on a sandbar drunk. And he woke up the next morning and he said, I'm so ashamed of you. And it hit me right in the mouth. And I was like, Daddy, this is something that I used to drive you around when I was 8, 9 years old, drunk at the river. You know, this was our thing. You know, this is what we did together. I thought that's what being a man was about. He said, I was never a man. That's not what being a man was about. He said, and I'm sorry. He said, but I'm ashamed of you.
Man, that's tough.
Last time I took a drink, I ain't touched it since. That was really, truly before I came back to God, because it hit me right in the mouth. It's like, all I've ever wanted to do is make that man proud, because he's a hardworking, good man.
And what you thought would make him proud made him disgusted.
Yeah, disgusted him. Absolutely disgusted him. And I did feel about that big then. This is super bad, man. So to COVID hit. We're up there at the car lot, you know, and all I can think about is my mama's in bad health. Her heart, she's got congestive heart failure. Every disc in her back is ruptured. About 6 to 8 months prior to COVID really hitting, she was walking out to her car and fell. And the little boy at the gym that you see with me with the longer hair, that's my nephew. And he was with her, and that was his world. Ever since he was 3 weeks old, my sister got divorced. She moved back in with my mom. My mama basically was his mama. And my sister was a great mama too. But that was Nana. That was his world. She fell in the yard, and right there in the yard, her spine severed. One of the discs that was bulging, it severed her spine. They took her to Tifton, ended up taking her to Shands. 2.5 hour surgery turned into 9.5 hours. She died 3 times on the operating table. But she was a fighter. Well, what we didn't know is through that back pain, through that back surgery, she did what a lot of people in America do. A lot of these surgeons, a lot of these doctors and medical professionals are doing to people, is they're getting them hooked on opioids. And this is a tough part. And I honest to goodness, I talked to my wife last night, and I prayed about this all day to share it or not share it. But I think somebody's out there that needs to hear this. So my mom gets hooked on opioids, oxys is what they call them. I don't know a bunch about pills, but they're pretty strong stuff, I guess. And we were kind of unknowing. We didn't know. And my mom was still the type of, the first time she met Matt, I brought him to the house, and we always had Sunday dinner after church. That was our thing. Whether we went to church together or not, I would go to one church, they would go to another church. I walked in and I said, "Hey, Mama, this is Matt. He works with me at the car lot, and he's an atheist." And my mama looked at him and said, "Was Matt a hungry atheist?"
True story. First time I ever met her.
That's all she cared about. She just loved people. That's it. She just loved them. Didn't care black, white, brown, Republican, Democrat. She didn't care what if you were a Muslim that walked in.
Sounds like she was a Christian.
She was a Christian. She was. She was a follower of Christ. She didn't go by a denomination. She loved God and she loved people. And she fell to something that was horrible. And we didn't know how bad it got, and it got really bad. And I'm not going to go into the depths of how bad it got, but we're talking about COVID. We're sitting at work, and I'm thinking, Mama, just stay home. I tell her every day, just stay home, Mama. It's bad. This is before the vaccine hit. The vaccine hit about a month after she ended up getting COVID. But she wouldn't. She ended up over in Alma with one of her best friends taking her food. That was her thing. After Sunday dinner, anything that was left, regardless, she would take that food to somebody that needed food. That was her thing. Well, she sat down with her. The lady didn't know she had COVID. She got COVID. Mama got COVID. We went and watched the Jacksonville Jaguars play the Tennessee Titans on Sunday, and my daddy called me midday. We had just left IHOP, about to head to the stadium, and that was our thing. We'd go watch a couple Jacksonville games, and he said, "Your mama's talking funny." And I was like, well, she's probably just mixed her medicine, because she had it for a week now. She probably just mixed her antibiotics with her pain medicine, and it's okay. It's not a big deal. He's like, okay. I said, just keep an eye on her, and if nobody thought, at the time, we didn't think about the little oxygen things. We didn't know. We get home that night, and about 4:30 that morning, my daddy calls me in a panic, and he said, your mama, she's I can't understand what she's saying. So I get over there, and it hits me like she's low on oxygen. So when the ambulance gets there, she's at 30% oxygen levels. And,
that's deadly, man.
Yeah, she's just talking and you can't even understand what she's saying. It's just gibberish. They load her up, and it's actually my wife's uncle, Corey Carver, was the EMT, and they loaded her up in the van, and I looked at her and I said, "I love you, Mama." And she was looking around, and Corey said, "He's talking to you, Miss Trudy." And she looked at me, and I said, "I love you, Mama." She said, "I love you, baby." And they closed the doors. They took her, and the doctor kept telling us if we put her on the vent, she's not gonna make it. She goes for about 3 days, and of course they have to ventilate her. And she stays on the vent for, I don't know, it felt like a year. Matt, how long was it? 7 or 10 days?
Yeah.
10 or 14 days. I mean, it felt like a year, because every day we would go to the gym and we would meet up at the Huddle House and we would just talk. And most of the days it ended with me crying. How am I going to do this without my mama? Well, my mama starts getting better. Double pneumonia, COVID, ate up. She starts getting better. And she wakes up, and they end up getting her just on the BiPAP. And she calls us and starts apologizing for some of the stuff she had done. Like I say, I'm not going to go into detail, but she apologized, and she said, I know if I don't get this right, I'm going to go to hell. But I got to get this right. And I ended up getting to go see her when they moved her to Savannah, and she was fine, free of COVID. They put her over there because they thought she needed a different surgery that didn't relate to COVID, and got over there, and God healed that. Didn't need that. So we got to sit together and talk, and I'll never forget it. She asked me for a peach milkshake, and I didn't take it. I forgot. I got everything at Chick-fil-A but the peach milkshake, and I still feel bad about that, but, it is what it is. When I got there, she didn't care. She just wanted to see me.
Right.
And we spent probably about 4.5 hours together and talked, and we got right, because I was angry at her for some of the stuff she had done.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it all went back to love, and we got right. And the next day they called, and I've got a friend at Vista Park, and they got her in over here at Vista Park for rehabilitation, because with that back surgery, she had lost all mobility in her legs. So they said it's probably going to be, could take 3 or 4 months to get her back up on her feet. Vista Park's the perfect place. You can't visit her in the room, but you can go to her window and you can see her. Okay. COVID's still rampant. All right. They get her over here. The next day, she's fine. She's tired. They get her to the room. The next day, she's just kind of in a daze. Nobody thought anything about it. The middle of the night, they call her. She had a massive heart attack. They got her back, put her back on the vent at the hospital, and the doctor's like, well, you know, she was without oxygen for a while. You know, we did everything we could. You know, she's probably going to have to go up to ICU. My shift's about to switch, so when the second shift comes on, they're going to put her up in ICU. Okay. I get home, and I'll never forget it. I was laying. I'd run a bath because I was tired. It was 5:30 in the morning. And I was just laying there, and my daddy called, and he said, she's gone. And I said, dude, I couldn't believe it. I mean, she was my rock. She was everything that I had in my life. And we had started going to Saving Grace. Matt actually ended up asking me about, you know, them crazy people over there at Saving Grace? He said, do you know Cliff Kirkland? And I was like, man, you ain't gonna believe this, but I got a pass with him due to the beauty shop stuff. And a couple months before that,
man, that's how God at the beginning
is
just working this thing out, man.
It's crazy. And we were going to church. We were asking for prayer. Pastor Cliff was there the whole time. Anytime I needed something, didn't matter what time, he was there. Loved my mama dearly. He just loves people too. You can feel the love coming off of him. He's just that kind of person. And I just sank, and I just started just like, it was just an uncontrollable cry. You know, never thought I'd lose my mama this young. I'm 30, 31, 30 at the time.
How old was she?
And she was 57. And I was like, I didn't think I was going to lose my mama this young. You know, we still got a lot of stuff to do. You know, we still got to tell this story. You know, you made it through this, you beat this. People were not beating this that were in decent health, and you were in the worst of health. And, you know, why God would you take my mama right now? Well, it was all a bigger plan. And she was the glue that held our family together. Everything about our family, the dinners, when people didn't get along, she was that person that would be the middleman to get everything back right. Her famous saying was, you know, you don't let the sun go down. Make it right. Call them and tell them you love them. They may not be here tomorrow. And something that I thank God for every day is being able to get to sit in that room with my mama all day. And like, I know where she's at. I know where she's at. No matter what she done, there in between that, I know she got right. And not only do I know she got right, but I know that like people still talk about like the love she had for people. That legacy still lives on. It lives on in my boys and my children. It lives on in my nephew. You know, it lives on through them because that Nana love, that love that she gave out, wasn't just a natural love. You couldn't love people like that just in a natural. That was a love that only God could give you.
Yeah.
You know, once you understand that, then you can actually love people like that.
Without even hearing Matt's testimony, I imagine that played a huge role in you going to God as well. Just by the...
He's definitely telling the truth. Like Miss Trudy, like loved people to the point to where like your non-spiritual mind, like I try to argue with it. It's like you
can argue with genuine love because it's such a rarity in the world we live in.
Yeah.
So you're connected with the church. They're kind of walking through.
Yeah.
You just lost your mom.
First person I called. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. I called Pastor Cliff, and he answered. Second ring. I won't never forget it. And I said, she's gone. And he started crying. He said, are you okay, son? You need me to come to you? I said, she's gone. I couldn't talk. Just broke. And he had actually spoke to my mama several times after she woke up about, you know, when you get out, y'all need to be a family. Y'all need to be together, whether you're here, whether you're there. And my mama had like, I'm coming. That's where I'm coming. You know, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there with my son. You know, we're going to get things right. And in that brokenness, and I can't name a specific date after she died, but the day she died, it was a Saturday. I called Will and I said, will you just go? I called him and said, she's gone. And we had to be to work that morning at 9. And I said, "Well, you just go eat with me? Can we just go sit down and eat and talk like we've been talking?" He said, "Yeah, man, of course."
Who's Will?
Matt is
Okay.
William Matthew Albritton.
Real quick story. When I started at Budget like 5 or 6 years ago, there was like 4 Matts. I went by Matt my whole entire life. So to keep, in the car world, to keep like nothing from getting confused or customers entangled with my wheel, and it's just kind of stuck.
Yeah. Okay.
When I'm mad with him, I call him Matt. When we're having a good time at the gym, I call him Willie.
I've never heard Willie, so he's probably always mad at you.
So I called him and I was like, "Can you go eat?" He said, "Of course." And my best friend that works with me up at the car lot, Travis, the other guy that comes to the gym, he brings his little son.
Okay, yeah.
He doesn't work out with us. He does his own little thing. He's got his own little regiment. But
I'm proud of him, by the way.
oh yeah, he's getting it. He's definitely losing it. But I went to his house because she also showed him that love. Part of my testimony was, when I worked at a prison, that's where I met Travis at, and that's where we become brothers. We ran the roads, acting crazy, staying out all night, howling at the moon,
Yeah.
And my mama always just loved him. And everybody would attack Travis, and he'd say, "Hold on now, Ethan makes his own decisions. Don't attack him. Make sure that you get your stuff right. Ethan's a grown man. You hold him accountable for what he done. We're not gonna pick out Travis." And she always just loved him. And he called her Ma. That's what he always called her. And
you got me wanting to meet your mom so bad. I can't. Hopefully one day I am going to meet her.
You will one day for sure. But
sounds to me like she was just the perfect host.
She was. She was. That's what if I could ever get my house to feel like that on Sunday, you'd be all right. But I went to his house, and I remember him opening the door, and I was just crying. He said, "She's gone?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yeah." And I hugged him, and he hugged me, and it felt like I was there for 30 minutes. And like I said, I can't say the date, a Wednesday night or a Sunday night, but I remember just going down to the altar, and I hadn't heard God in so long. I'd walked away so far from God, and to the point of where I'm like, well, he walked away from me too. And I laid down there at the altar, and I just laid up there, and I just said, "God, if you'll just talk to me, if you'll just have me back one more time, just one more time, just give me one more chance." And
that's powerful, man.
I remember hearing God's voice for the first time in about 10 years. And it was never he walked away. It was always I walked away. I ran away. I didn't walk. Yeah. I ran. I jogged. I ran. I sprinted. And I just remember hearing God's voice saying, "I got you." Yeah. He didn't speak to me in like Old English or Hebrew.
Dude, I can't. I'm the same way. I'm like, why does God not speak to me in King James like everybody else?
He told me, just like I'm talking to you, is like I'm still here. I never went anywhere. I'm still here. And
what a comfort, man.
Oh yeah, it felt like it felt like my mama was hugging me. That's what it felt like. And a couple weeks later, I had accepted the fact that I said, if I'm saved now, I gave my life back to Christ. I'm gonna make it now. I'm gonna be okay, but I'm just gonna be okay. My wife was going to church at Broxton, and she was the youth leader there. And I told her, I was like, until God tells me something, I got to stay here. This is where I'm being fed. This is where I know God wants me at. I know that what the Bible says, and we're supposed to be together. And I said, but right now, I just need to get my feet up under me. Just let me stay. And she was always supportive. Wanted to stay there, but always supportive. You go where you need to go. And I walked down to the altar one night. It was a Wednesday night. I remember this one. And God had dealt with me about stepping up, and I was just praying, and I said, "God, I don't think the call is still there. I'm sure by now you took the call and you gave it to somebody else. I've already missed on 10, 15 years of opportunity, but if it's still there, if you'll just let me know, I'll consider it." That's how I put it. I was like negotiating with God down there at the altar.
Yeah.
And a lady walked off the stage, and her name's Shelly Smith. And she walked off the stage, and she said, "The call never left you. You left a call." And it's like I just
in your face.
all right, God, I guess this is it then.
Yeah, God has an in your face moment, like when Jonah got swallowed by a whale. He's like,
That's right.
You thought you were running.
That's right. And it wasn't many months after that, Pastor Cliff started, we have a minister's class that's a part of our Sunday school that if you're, an aspiring minister, if you feel called into one of the ministries, that's part of the class. It's a preparation class. Brother Michael Harper does it, and it's powerful.
That's good.
It's where
that's
a
really
bunch
good.
and there's about 10 or 15 head that get in there. Some families, me and my wife go, a couple other, their wives go, and you gather up and he actually walks you through, it starts off with baby steps and it moves pretty quickly, about being a minister. And, he talks about the first step in being a minister is, being humble. You have to humble yourself. And I never in a million years thought that I would be sitting here on a podcast giving my testimony, number one. I never in a million years thought that God would see fit to put me over, 30 to 35 of the most odd, weird, extraordinary, most beautiful children that you could ever see. And I've quit 100 times, I promise you, in my mind, and I've said it out loud, I quit. I can't do this no more.
Yeah.
And every time that I try to run, God just reminds me, through a person or just speaks to me.
Yeah.
I never in a million years thought that we'd be here. When me and Matt met at Budget, they brought him over as another salesman with another manager that I could not stand, and I couldn't stand. We didn't talk. We didn't talk for a couple months at all. And to the point of, I was like, I'm just going to starve him. I'm going to starve him out. And then we found out our wives were cousins. And I was like, well, I'm still going to starve him out, but I will talk to him every once in a while. I'm still going to beat him. I'm still going to outsell him. And it's amazing how God takes, what the enemy meant for evil, he turns it for good. What could have been me and him absolutely hating each other, he ends up putting us both in ministry together, and I couldn't do it without him. I couldn't. If God didn't place us strategically where he placed us, at the time he placed us, how he placed us, it's not a just so happened circumstance. It's something that when God did it, it's so crazy. At the times that I'm in the lowest of low valleys, he's able to reach down there and pick it. We level each other out. The things that he lacks, I'm strong in. The things that I lack, he's strong in.
Yeah.
And we end up, and Brother Cliff said, I don't understand it. That's what God told me was supposed to happen. But it works.
Yeah.
And there's no envy. There's no jealousy.
And now your life is a complete, 180 in a total different direction.
Yeah.
Where you're reaching kids that now you're being that pillar in their lives. The people that you mentioned, the ministers that you mentioned at the churches that you attended, you needed somebody there for that foundational structure, and now you are going to be that for somebody, Lord willing, for years and years to come. My
youth pastor, and Stephen Anderson, he's the service manager at the Ford Place. He's a pastor now at Axon Church of God of Prophecy. But I went up to him, I don't know, 6 months, 7 months ago, and I just started crying, and I said, I just want to thank you. Because the things that you said, the things that you've done, the godly example that you showed, he used to bring us over to his house on Friday and Saturday night, so we wasn't out doing other stuff, and we'd play pool, we'd watch movies, we would play games, play Uno, just anything to keep us
out of trouble.
His house was open. He lived in Ambrose. He didn't have the biggest, the fanciest of houses. He didn't have the most amount of money. He couldn't provide just, but he provided time.
He opened his door.
He did. He provided time.
It was a safe haven.
It was in every sense of the word. It was a haven. It was a safe place that we could come to. Anything that I had going on in my life, I could talk to him about it.
You're welcome, Josh. You're welcome, Ty.
I'm not giving you that credit.
But and I pray every day that, and God, every time that I doubt it, every time that I still Because, I mean, I'm not going to tell you that I sit here and every day is a perfect day.
Oh, no.
There's some days you'll see me in the gym and I'm not talking to anybody. It's a bad day for me. I'm having a bad time. I got my headphones in. I'm trying to focus on getting through the day so that hopefully tomorrow will be a better day. But
Amen.
God reminds me. You know, we had a tent revival a couple of weeks ago right there at it used to be the middle school, now it's the 9th grade academy. And one of the kids ever since we took over, has been going through a absolute battle in her family. And the mama's, she's faithful. She's been faithful. Her brother and sister, they've been faithful. But every Wednesday night, that little girl's down there upstairs at the altar. She's praying. And like I say, I'm not going to the situation, but it was bad.
Yeah.
And she went and she would pray and she would be faithful. And it was just, she was so persistent that she was going to get that breakthrough. And it got to the point where God kept telling me to tell her to stand, to just stand still, just keep going, just keep praying. It's going to be okay. To the last month, and I've told them this, that the last month of it, I said, God, how can I don't even know if I believe this anymore. This is 6 months, been going on ever since I met this girl. She's been in an absolute battle, a war with the devil. How do I tell her it's going to be okay? And he said, now you stand still and watch me work.
Yeah. Practice what you preach, right?
Yeah. A week later, we show up at the tent revival. Her mom walks up to me and said, everything's been cleared. Everything's good. They're coming home.
Wow.
So for that I don't know what happened at the tent revival that night. I don't know who preached, but I stood on the other side of the tent and I just cried. And I said, God, if I ever doubt you again, just remind me of this.
Yeah.
Give me a flashback.
That's right.
Remind me.
And look over just the small span of time that we've went over even in your life, and look how many reminders he's given you already. We criticize the children of Israel so much. We're like, come on, guys.
Yep.
Don't you see what happens at the end of the story? Yep. No, they didn't.
They didn't.
You know,
and that's why they never made it.
That's right.
You know,
because of doubt, it was God's not good enough. God's not good enough. And I'll be brave enough to say this: people who live like that, God, you got to do something else. God, you got to do something else. I don't think they have the stamina to make it.
They don't.
You know,
because we're running a race.
Yeah, we are.
It's a marathon. You know, and it talks about, and about Paul talks about, I believe it's in Corinthians. He talks about, don't get so caught up in preaching that I myself may be disqualified. You know, there's a lot of times to where, a lot of times I think we get so caught up in ministry that we don't even realize that it's not just there in those four walls. That it's outside of them.
Amen. It's in a gym.
Yeah, it's in the gym.
That's right.
It's in the gym. It's at work. You know, can I show God whenever, you know, it's been a slow month? Can I still exuberate God? Can people still see my lamp?
Is he still good?
Is he still good?
He's always good. Man, yes. Ethan, you have an incredible story. I can't wait for everyone to just start listening to this episode and share it. Share it with the people that you know. Tell what God's done. There was a woman in the Bible that left a well, and Jesus spoke to her, transformed her life, and she didn't keep it to herself. She said, come see a man who told me all I ever done.
That's right.
And he changes lives. That's what he is in the business of doing. I can't wait to hear Matt's testimony. And we just want to say thank you so much for each and every one for attending and listening and viewing. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Ty. Ryan, we miss you. Hurry back. We'll see you next week. Have a great, great day. Over and under.